Hello, Finxters. Mark's here, and I thought I would talk to you today about a practical project that I did at this point in middle of November 2020. I've been learning to program for about 8 weeks now, and so I've progressed on to the part that Chris talks about, where you start working on practical projects. This particular project was quite a challenge for me. I knew it was going to be difficult, but it turned out to be far more than I expected. This is about the second or third practical project that I've done. I didn't do too many test projects, so I jumped into this, and it's like I say, it was quite a challenge. It took me a lot of hours to figure this out for the different pieces that are in this. So anyway, I thought I would talk to you about it, and you can get something out of parsing XML and potentially using Matplotlib, and if you're fairly new at programming like I am, then maybe you can get a little bit of get up and go and get out there and start doing them. Okay, so this project I had actually picked up off of Freelancer. So I know that there's lists and stuff that's been out there of practical projects that are pulled from the archive on Freelancer. This project was actually a current project. It was one that was put out there. It had only been out there for like an hour or two. And in my case, I don't feel confident enough. I'm not there. So I picked it up as a practical project and worked on it. So for this project, you're pulling the XML, so an extensible markup language, which is basically like a data transport. In a sense, think of something that's potentially say like JSON or YAML or whatever. And so XML's been around for a while, so that's what it is. But we're going to do it from weather, and the data that we're going to pull is then going to be we're going to parse out the temperature from that. Is what I chose to do, and that's actually what they were looking for. But they didn't actually say the data that they were looking for, so that's what I chose. So you're going to pull the weather data for the last 3 days, and then you're going to plot that. So we're going to use Matplotlib. And like I say, in this particular case, I was not familiar with doing XML or what XML really. Well, I mean, I'd heard of it, but I didn't know much about it. And then and then of course I got to parse it, and then I've got to do Matplotlib. So it was like, all right, let's just tackle it and go along, and that's pretty much how it went. So let's dive into this and see what we can do. So the first part that I did is I went to the National Weather Service, and I look at this page all the time. This is the one here for my local area, and looked at these pages and said, okay, where can I get data, because I know that there's some data out here. And so what I found out here is over in this one corner here, you see this 3-day history, and this turned out to be where you needed to go. So you click on 3-day history, and you get to this page, and this here actually is the data, and it's pretty much, it's already been parsed, right? They've got these nice little graphs. Well, what I noticed was if at top here corner it says XML, and so this is what you do to get this particular XML data. And I currently can't click on this because somebody broke it earlier this evening, and so I had to figure out how to get around it. They munged or removed or did something, this PHP file, and so anyway. If you click on that link, you'll get something that looks like this. And here's your XML. And notice in the link in here, so much like the internet, right? That stuff changes. So if you'll notice this in here, so KHLN is the station, right? So in the United States, at least, stations, weather stations or radio stations and that kind of stuff. If they're east of the Mississippi River, then they start with a W. If they're west, then they start with a K. So in this case, I'm west of the Mississippi. So there is K, and then HLN is the three-letter designator. And actually, our airport is HLN for Helena. And you'll notice here that we've got Helena Regional Airport, right? So that's our little local airport here. And this num equals 72, this actually, what this transcribes to is the last 72 hours. I actually figured that out in this part. So anyway, so this is the information that we pull back from this is the XML that comes back. And so we've got a bunch of descriptions here and stuff that we need to go through. So I'll go through it here, and I've got some other things to show you in part with that. So the first part is this is the top of the tree, the root system, whatever you want to call it, right? So we've got a station ID, which we know is KHLN. We've got Helena Regional Airport, we've got an elevation, latitude and longitude, and the provider that we've got. So the NWS is the National Weather Service and FAA is the Federal Aviation Administration, right? So this is the first part. Then if you'll notice, we've got these, OB is object, and so we've got this here, and then if you've worked with HTML, right? So we've got this here, and then we've got a /OB here. So this is a block in a sense, and this block corresponds to this time, and they give it in two different formats. They give, this is the local time in AM PM format, and then this is U time, which is a numerical format for machine time. This would be computer time, and it's the number of seconds that have transpired since January 1st, 1970. So you could use this, you could use either one. All right. In this case, I chose to use this this particular format. We'll get into this in a minute. So then you'll notice that you've got all these different, they're called variables, right? So that's what they're calling them here. But you'll notice that you've got like T, TD, RH, whatever, and then you've got a description. So you've got temperature, dew point, relative humidity, direction, wind direction, all this other kind of stuff, right? Which corresponds to a lot of this data here, where we've got wind speed, direction, right? Okay, all that data is right here. So the information that we're looking for is actually this line right here, right? So this is this is the bit that I want, and you'll notice that we've got at 8:53 p.m. and we have 7:55 p.m. same day, so so an hour, basically an hour difference. And then this one is 7:53. It's interesting, some of these things. So here, these are like 3 minutes apart, right? But this last one here is an hour apart. Not sure why, but that's what it is. But if you'll notice, so we've got each one of these chunks, time chunks. We've got our temperature, right? And so this is the data that I was interested in pulling, was this particular piece of data. So now we're going to go over here and look at the program. And thanks to some Shubham, I started using about halfway through this. I started using PyCharm and learning how to use PyCharm. So some of this, so I'm still not familiar with this particular thing, but I'm getting used to it. But one little feature that I found in here that was really kind of interesting is that it would generate these XML descriptors. So here is the XML file, like you would get. All right, so this is the part that I pulled. You'll notice that this one says Salt Lake City International Airport because I pulled somebody else. And we've got these kind of like descriptor files, right? So if you look at this, it gives you the schema layout, right? In fact, it says schema in here. So you get the schema layout, so you get the station, right? So this is looking at, if you took this, right? So we've got the station and all the information that you can pull out from station. And then you've got the the object. So we've got the time object, and we got our description and stuff like we were looking at before. So this breaks it all out, but it makes it look more tree-ish. When I first started the program, I wished I'd have had this, because I was looking at stuff that would put it in this kind of not scope, but yeah, layout, would put it in this layout, and I was looking at that layout, so I couldn't quite, I had a little bit of a tough time trying to figure out, okay, exactly how it is that I pulled stuff. Another thing that I found that this did is it would generate this particular bit, which was like perfect, because now you can see how it's all nested. Very good word. It's all nested down in here. Here's your, your station, and underneath it is your object, right, with my time. And then underneath that, you've got your element variable, and then all your different attributes within the variables. So it was like, I wished I'd had this at the beginning. Anyway, yeah, I think it still would have taken a while to get this done. So here's the program. I got some of it hidden. We're going to go through some of this. Now, part of the it was something that I had thought about, rather than hard coding the URL that you would send it, or to just run the program to a fixed URL. I took the extra, liberties in a sense, right? It's my program, it's my project. So I took the liberties to pick up the command line, or pick up the station from the command line. This was something that I added to it so that I could learn to work with stuff on the command line. What the heck, let's just throw a bunch of stuff in here. So the first part, so as we have this here, so it's actually, honestly, the program isn't that long. That's what's really got me when I get into this. It was like the program actually itself isn't that long. So so we've got our main part of our program. So the first thing we have to do is we have to go we're going to get the URL. So the users are going to give us something like this, right? So we're going to give it a URL, and this is what we're going to go pull. So I first thing I do is get the URL. So this was the particular piece of code. I had to, again, Google, you can figure this out. So I went out and I only take one single argument, a dash URL, and I did set up a help thing for it. So if you give it a dash H, if you haven't seen anything like that before, so if we did something like Python weather.py and we do dash H, then we get the actual help text for it, right? So here's our usage and what we got. So that's one of the things that I did, and that parser, this argparse parser, is what does that for you. So this is a good thing to pick up. So we pick up the URL, and in my case, what I did was, if there isn't one given, so if you just ran, weather.py, if you just ran the program, then you didn't give it an argument, then I just basically I set it to an argument. That again, that was my thing. So that was one of the, rather than throwing an error or any of those kinds of things or whatever, I just said, here, take this as the default. Maybe I'll rewrite it at some point. I don't know, we'll see. But that's what I ended up doing. All right. So the next part of the program, we then get that URL. So that piece was just to get the URL. We then take that URL and I put it into this load weather. And pretty much a simple thing. I make a request, and we go ahead and open it. Sorry. So we go make the request. So this response is going to come back from this request. And this is going to be our XML response. And in my case, I was originally thinking that I would be able to do this where I would just parse the feed inline, basically like dumping into memory, and I couldn't get that to work. I'm sure that, you know, my 8 weeks of programming is a little short here on some things. Anyway, so what I ended up doing is I just went ahead and just dumped it. I dumped it into this weather feed file and just dumped it. Just it overwrites it every time it runs, and so we just read it out. So, don't want to do that. So the next thing after we load the weather is we're going to go ahead and we're going to parse the XML, right? So in this particular case, what I'm looking for the return on that would be the station call sign and the station name out of this particular piece. So Parse XML is probably one of the bigger parts of the program. So we're going to kind of go through this. So the element tree, which you'll see up here in my imports. So we've got the element tree, and is the part that does the XML parsing. And so take the XML file, right? So this weatherfeed.xml, this file right here, right? And we take that part, and we're going to go in, and first thing we're going to do is going to grab the root. And in this case, you know, we're going to start walking down the tree, right? So the first part in the first part of that, of course, was the station, right? So we looked at this. The very first thing, that part of the tree was the station. So we're going to pull the station out, and out of those particular two, we got attributes or ID and name. So we've got ID is this part here where it's KSLC, so Salt Lake City in this case, and the name Salt Lake City International Airport, right? And for this particular one. So we're going to pull those two elements out, or attributes. We're going to pull those two attributes out. And then we're going to say, all right, now we're going to start on the second part of the string where we've got those objects. Remember those objects from earlier. So this is what an object looks like, right? We looked at this, right? We got time, we got UTime. So I'm going to go ahead and append time. So I'm going to create a list here. I'm going to append the time. Now the timestamps themselves are unique, right? So we've got this timestamp right here. The next timestamp is right here. So each one of these blocks is unique by timestamp. Underneath that we have, so I saved that off. Underneath that we've got the variables. So I'm going to say I need to walk the next part of the block, right? So for each variable in there, I'm going to iterate down through it, and I'm going to be looking for that var equals t. So this right here is the one I'm pulling, this var equals t. And if you notice, we've got, you know, these different attributes that we can pull out of that. And in particular, I was looking for the so var equal t, and I'm looking for the attribute, sorry, looking at the attribute its value. So this particular piece right here is the actual temperature in Fahrenheit that I'm looking for. And then, you know, so I go in and I have a different list, and I'm going to append that. So there's two lists, and then I return from this particular one, I return the call sign and the station name. So at this point, what I've done is I've created two lists, which then is going to be, it's going to be fed into, we're going to feed the call sign, station name, and these time and temperature values into Matplotlib. And this is where everything for me kind of became a standstill, and yeah, anyway. So I ended up having it. So I'm going to show you this. This is part of one of my Scratch part of the programs that I created to try to work on Matplotlib, you know, outside of the main program. And if you've done Matplotlib or been programming for a while and you happen to be watching this, you probably can look at this and see exactly where my mistake was. But suffice to say, it was a big one, and it was just one that I didn't know. So there's several things here. One is, if you'll look, is these timestamps are backwards. So normally you would think of it, you'd say, okay, I'm going to start it, the 8th of November, 7th of November, and then I'm going to plot to the right to go up in days, so left to right, going up in date and times. And if you'll notice, because of the way that the XML is it's actually the opposite. It's descending. That was the first thing I ran into. And then of course you've got the temperatures do match, right? They match across here, which means these go across. So the first thing I got in is was to flip them around. I thought I had to flip them around, which it turned out I didn't have to. Matplotlib is smarter than I am. So I just did the reverse slice originally to flip them to get them into the order that I wanted. But in essence, that wasn't the real big problem I thought there was. So I would run this plot, and the plots were coming out, and the temperatures were all over the map. So if you looked at the left-hand side, the temperatures weren't in ascending order. They weren't even necessarily in order. They were just whatever they happened to be. They would come out just like this, and the time wasn't so much of a problem, but this definitely was a problem, and it was driving me nuts. I really had a tough time. I finally ended up going out and asking the internet, because I couldn't get it. I'd looked at stuff and looked at stuff and looked at stuff at Matplotlib, and then I asked, and the first thing, as soon as somebody gave me the answer, I did one of those slap my head format things. I just was like, I can't believe I missed that. So those kind of things. So if you'll notice this, and you haven't done it, is these are all strings. Matplotlib needs these in numbers. It actually needs the number. I was like, oh, gads, that was such a, for all the different videos and everything I'd watch, it was just one of those things that I just missed it by 50 miles kind of sort of thing. So I came up with a converter. So I came up with a parser. That's what this date-yield-till parser is for, is to parse this into, and I don't have it saved here, but it's date-time format. So it's datetime.datetime, and then format Matplotlib, which is what it needs. And then, I needed to convert the temperatures, these temperatures here from strings to, a float format, a number format for Matplotlib. And as soon as I did that, then my plot started working. It was like, oh, so I did have to work on this part here quite a bit. It got better as I got better at it. I worked on it enough to get this to work. The one thing I thought was interesting, where I said whereas Matplotlib was smarter than I am, is I realized that I did not have to switch this around. It did it automatically, and I'll show you when we go up and when we run the program. But it was interesting. I didn't have to flip it. It was smarter than me. So this is the part that does the this is the part that does the plotting, and this is actually right here in the program. So and basically this thing is lifted and put in here, and this is it to do all of the plotting. So what is this? In a sense, all right, here we've been talking all this. So we've got all these XML files. We got to plot it. So what's it look like? Well, let's run it and find out. So if we take this, and I had to modify this slightly because obviously somebody did something different. So in this case, we're going to do Salt Lake City, and I'm passing it this XML or URL, excuse me. And so this is, I like Helena better. So this is the plot and how it came out. Now originally, where I was having troubles is my temperatures on this side were not like this, where it was in uniform like this. And I realize that this is kind of a dense plot, and we've got, and it's it's pulling these date and times, and these are actually, yeah, no, they're right, 18. I was thinking there was 17, but I didn't put the 17 out here. Excuse me. So, you know, and I put the header up here. And so this was the final result of well, and at this point I called it done. You know, I could sit here and tweak on this all day. That was fun anyway. So, you know, that's where we came out with the program. So it was a lot of fun to do. And actually, I thanked for the pointer for PyCharm, because before this I was using VS Code, and which is fine. I don't have a problem with VS Code. It worked well, you know, for what I was doing. And I've lost it. Oh, how about that? Oh. So we've got too many windows open. There we go. So that's it. That's that was the short practical project that I did, and plotting that, and having to learn XML, and you know, playing with the Matplotlib. So if you have any questions, you want to get a hold of me, there you go. There's my email address, and there's my MeWe account that I have, and you can get a hold of me that way if you so choose. But you know, if you're out starting out programming, and like I say, I've been doing this about 8 weeks now, learning programming, learning Python, and you know, get out there and do those practical projects. So hope you enjoyed it.